I'm muted. And I'm also rusty. So, this is what we get when I don't stream for, I don't know, like, I think it's 2 weeks. Yikes. But, hello. Let me switch to my... Oh, let's stay on the just starting screen. I'm comfortable with the just starting screen, as you can see, because of my... Oh, I just went away. Good timing. Because of my new music thingy, Pretzel Rocks. We're hearing O2 by Vince Piersman. I don't know these songs. Usually I get to check my songs before they begin to play. Or at least I have done in the past for months since I've started doing this. But now we're just letting Pretzel Rocks tell me whatever it wants me to listen to. Also, hi, I see there are 2 viewers. I did not know anyone was even watching. Hola! Thanks for coming. Thank you. We have something exciting today. No, not for you, but for me. I have tea like usual. This isn't terribly exciting. I generally have tea for this. But my sister went to the grocery store and surprised me with mochi. And I know I said that I wouldn't be eating food anymore on these live streams because that's a bad idea. I figured, mochi at the beginning of this stream wouldn't hurt. So, hi. I've been missing you guys. Missing streaming. And, I'll tell you guys a little bit more about my day and what I've been up to these past 2 weeks after I eat this. I can feel it melting in my hand. Also, don't be afraid to say hi yourself. This is amazing. And it's much mushier than I thought it was, so I'm gonna be eating this quicker than anticipated. Brain freeze. I'm dying. Hi guys, I'm so happy you came to watch. Not only because you thought you were signing up to watch the worst book club ever, because it's just me reading the same exact book every week. And little did you know you'd be hearing some really strange classic music while I die and eat ice cream. This has to go in the freezer. These are melting so fast. At an alarming rate. Okay, I'm back. That was a disaster. I'm good now. Hi. Thank you for coming. Okay, I feel better now. So, what happened? I ate a mochi ball and it was melting and it hurt my brain because I have very sensitive teeth and it was too cold. Even though they were melting, it was too cold. I ate it all at once. I shouldn't have bit the ice cream. I should not have bit the ice cream. I had like 2 viewers and I lost one because of the mochi incident. Well, maybe it wasn't because of the mochi incident, but I'm gonna tell myself it was because of the mochi incident. Don't worry, I put the mochi away. Now we're just back to some green tea, which I'm going to sit and let get cold, and then I'm gonna drink it, and I'm gonna hate that it's cold. Like I always do. But in the meantime, I'm gonna drink water, and we're gonna get started. So, what I've been up to these past 2 weeks, mainly working, but I also visited New York, and I got to see my friends who live in New York. And I just completely brain. Oh, I remember. Today, it's my last day off before I go back to school, so you're gonna see me being incredibly busy over the next couple of weeks. Um, I went to a bakery with my sisters, and then I got my nails done with my twin, and then I went to Starbucks, and then I played Mario Kart for an hour. That's how my day's been. I hope y'all have also had a similarly epic day off. But alas, if there isn't anyone else to share their stories of their times with me, their 2 weeks since I've been gone. Oh, I just fogged up my glasses. Let's get started on the reading. I just needed a chill, easy way to end my day, my long day. I knew that if I was going to live stream this week, it would have to be today, but it was a long day. Am I being summoned? Hello? No, we're fine. I'm losing my mind. Alrighty. Yo, you know how I said, oh, we're listening to O2 by Vince Pearsman? Yeah, this song is 13 minutes long. So I hope you really like it, because we're 8 minutes in. We still got like 5 more minutes. Oh, and I got mochi powder on my little scroll pad because I was panicking about getting the mochi ball away from me and into my mouth. Alrighty, let me switch to my reading screen before I forget. Hello, we're reading here today. 20,000. If I ever decide to read anything that isn't 20,000, I am screwed, aren't I? Okay, sorry, I forgot I told myself I'm leaving that. And let's read, shall we? So, we have finished part 1 of the book. If you haven't read it, highly suggest you do. It's literally one of my favorite books of all time. I'm reading it because it's in the public domain. It was written in the 1800s in French, and it has been translated into English by the Gutenberg Files. This is like their translation. They do excellent work, if you don't know about their cause, to make works be easily accessible by everybody and be in the public domain. And I don't know, it's just super cool. It's all volunteer based. So they didn't ask me to give them a shout out. I wouldn't expect them to, but I'm just saying it's sincere. And yeah, we finished, I think, 24 chapters, and now we're starting again. I believe I'm gonna start reading chapter 1 and chapter 2 of part 1 today, assuming I read 2 chapters. Generally, the format is that I read 2 chapters. But yeah, let's dive right into it, shall we? Actually, maybe I want to wait. I might skip the song / wait for it to end. Oh, hold on, I just realized my screen really lights up when I go to that, huh? I'm just gonna turn it down, like, all the way. Alright, let's skip this song. I'm ready to go. Sorry, Vince. Thank God this one's 42 seconds long. Okay. Chapter 1. The Indian Ocean. Now we begin the second part of this voyage under the seas. The first ended in that moving scene at the Coral Cemetery, which left a profound impression on my mind. And so Captain Nemo would live out his life entirely in the heart of this immense sea, and even his grave lay ready in its impenetrable depths. There the last sleep of the Nautilus's occupants, friends bound together in death as in life, would be disturbed by no monster of the deep. No man either, the captain had added. Always with that same fierce, implacable defiance of human society. As for me, I was no longer content with the hypotheses that satisfied counsel. That fine lad persisted in seeing the Nautilus's commander as merely one of those unappreciated scientists who repay humanity's indifference with contempt. For counsel, the captain was still a misunderstood genius who, tired of the world's deceptions, had been driven to take refuge in this inaccessible environment where he was free to follow his instincts. But to my mind, this hypothesis remained only one side of Captain Nemo. In fact, the mystery of that last afternoon when we were locked in prison and put to sleep, the captain's violent precaution of snatching from my grasp a spyglass poised to scour the horizon, and the fatal wound given that man during some unexplained collision suffered by the Nautilus, all led me down a plain trail. No, Captain Nemo wasn't content simply to avoid humanity. His fearsome submersible served not only his quest for freedom, but also, perhaps, it was used in Lord knows what schemes of dreadful revenge. Right now, nothing is clear to me. I still glimpse only glimmers in the dark, and I must limit my pen, as it were, to taking dictation from events. But nothing binds us to Captain Nemo. He believes that escaping from the Nautilus is impossible. We are not even constrained by our word of honor. No promises fetter us. We are simply captives. Prisoners masquerading under the name guests for the sake of everyday courtesy. Even so, Ned Land hasn't given up all hope of recovering his freedom. He's sure to take advantage of the first chance that comes his way. No doubt I will do likewise. And yet I will still feel some regret at making off with the Nautilus's secrets, so generously unveiled for us by Captain Nemo. Because ultimately, should we detest or admire this man? Is he the persecutor or the persecuted? And in all honesty, before I leave him forever, I want to finish this underwater tour of the world, whose first stages have been so magnificent. I want to observe the full series of these wonders gathered under the seas of our globe. I want to see what no man has seen yet, even if I must pay for this insatiable curiosity with my life. What are my discoveries to date? Nothing, relatively speaking, since so far we've only uncovered 6,000 leagues across the Pacific. Only? This book is 20,000 leagues under the sea. If they've gone 6,000 leagues, we have many leagues yet. Anyway, nevertheless, I'm well aware that the Nautilus is drawing near to populated shores, and if some chance for salvation becomes available to us, it would be sheer cruelty to sacrifice my companions for my passion for the unknown. I must go with them, perhaps even guide them. But will this opportunity ever arise? The human being, robbed of his free will, craves such an opportunity. But the scientist, forever inquisitive, dreads it. That day, January 21st, 1868, the chief officer went at noon to take the sun's altitude. I climbed onto the platform, lit a cigar, and watched him at work. It seemed obvious to me that this man didn't understand French, because I made several remarks in a loud voice that were bound to provoke him in some involuntary show of interest had he understood them. But he remained mute and emotionless. Dude, what were you saying? Hold on. He's like, oh, I know this guy doesn't speak French because I said many things that would provoke an involuntary response. Like what? Like what? Anyway. Also, no one do a posture check because my posture is immaculate right now and that would be a waste of your points. Or do it! You know what? I can't make you. Anyway. While he took his sights with his sextant, one of the Nautilus's sailors, that muscular man who had gone with us to Crespo Island during our underwater excursion, came up to clean the glass panes of the beacon. I then examined the fittings of this mechanism, whose power was increased 100-fold by biconvex lenses that were designed like those in a lighthouse, and kept its rays productively focused. This electric lamp was so constructed as to yield its maximum illuminating power. In essence, its light was generated in a vacuum, ensuring both its steadiness and intensity. Such a vacuum also reduced wear on the graphite points between which the luminous... Sorry. Nope, we have to stop. I hate so much when piano has words in it. This is one of the things about me. I hate that. And I'm hoping that if we click on the classical channel instead of the chill piano, which is what I had on before, there won't be any talking. And I think we're starting off great because the first song that's playing is the Spoopy Spooter Forest. What is my life? Okay, cool. Spoopy Spooter Forest. In essence, its light was generated in a vacuum, ensuring both its steadiness and intensity. Such a vacuum also reduced wear on the graphite points between which the luminous arc expanded. This was an important savings for Captain Nemo, who couldn't easily renew them. But under these conditions, wear and tear were almost non-existent. When the Nautilus was ready to resume its underwater travels, I went below again to the lounge. The hatches closed once more, and our course was set due west. We then plowed the waves of the Indian Ocean, vast liquid plains with an area of 550 million hectares, whose waters are so transparent it makes you dizzy to lean over the surface. There, the Nautilus generally drifted at a depth of between 100 and 200 meters. It behaved in this way for some days. To anyone without my grand passion for the sea, these hours would have surely seemed long and monotonous, but my daily strolls on the platform where I was revived by the life-giving ocean air, the sights in the rich waters beyond the lounge windows, the books to be read in the library, and the composition of my memoirs took up all of my time and left me without a moment of weariness or boredom. Hey, did it? Hold on. Yo, it just started playing the Spoopy Spooter Forest again. My life is the joke. When the only one in chat is Pretzel Rocks and it's playing the same song on repeat every day, I just skipped the other song and it started playing the Spoopy Spooter Forest again. I don't even know what to do. Ambient noise? Is this what we want? Ambient noise? I'm gonna listen to ambient noise for now because I'm starting to lose my mind. All in all, we enjoyed a highly satisfactory state of health. The diet on board agreed with us perfectly, and for my part, I could easily have gone without those changes of pace that Ned Land, in a spirit of protest, kept taxing his ingenuity to supply us. What's more, in this constant temperature, we didn't even have to worry about catching colds. Besides, the ship had a good stock of Madrepore dendrophilia, known in Provence by the name sea fennel, and a poultice made from the dissolved flesh of its polyps will furnish an excellent cough medicine. For some days, we saw a large number of aquatic birds with webbed feet, known as gulls or seamews. Some were skillfully slain, and when cooked in a certain fashion, they make a very acceptable platter of water game. Among the great wind riders, carried over long distances from every shore and resting on the waves from their exhausting flights, I spotted some magnificent albatross, birds belonging to the long-winged family, whose discordant calls sound like the braying of an ass. The fully webbed family was represented by swift frigate birds, nimbly catching fish at the surface, and by numerous tropic birds of the genus Phaeton. Among others, the red-tailed tropic bird, the size of a pigeon, its white plumage shaded with pink tints that contrasted with its dark-hued wings. I'm really happy almost no one is watching because I am losing my mind right now. I just remembered that I said I'd be playing chill piano, so I'm switching back to chill piano. And I was playing a song called Current off the album Waves of Innocence, and honestly, stick with this vibe. I hope it's a good song. We're doing ocean stuff. This works perfect. The Nautilus's nets hold up several types of sea turtle from the hawksbill genus with arching backs whose scales are highly prized. Diving easily, these reptiles can remain a good while underwater by closing the fleshy valves located at the external openings of their nasal passages. When they were captured, some hawksbills were still asleep inside their carapaces, a refuge from other marine animals. The flesh of these turtles was nothing memorable, but their eggs made an excellent feast. As for fish, they always filled us with wonderment when, staring through the open panels, we could unveil the secrets of their aquatic lives. I noted several species I hadn't previously been able to observe. Oh no, I feel like we're about to start a chapter that's just him listing stuff about fish, so buckle up. I'll mention chiefly some trunkfish unique to the Red Sea, the Sea of the East Indies, and that part of the ocean washing the coasts of equinoctial America. Like turtles, armadillos, sea urchins, and crustaceans, these fish are protected by armor plate that's neither chalky nor stony, but actual bone. Sometimes this armor takes the shape of a solid triangle, sometimes that of a solid quadrangle. Among the triangular type, I noticed some half a decimeter long, with brown tails, yellow fins, and wholesome, exquisitely tasty flesh. I even recommended that they be acclimatized to freshwater, a change, incidentally, that a number of saltwater fish can make with ease. I'll also mention that some quadrangular trunkfish, topped by 4 large protuberances along the back, trunkfish sprinkled with white spots on the underside of the body, which make good house pets, like certain birds, boxfish armed with stings informed by extensions of their bony crusts, and whose odd grunting has earned them the nickname sea pigs, then some trunkfish known as dromedaries, with tough, leathery flesh and big conical humps. Wow. From the daily notes kept by Mr. Consul, I also retrieved certain fish from the genus Tetradon unique to these seas. Southern puffers with red backs and white chests, distinguished by 3 lengthwise rows of filaments, and jugfish 7 inches long, decked out in the brightest colors. Then, as specimens of other genera, blowfish resembling a dark brown egg, furrowed with white bands and lacking tails, globefish, genuine porcupines of the sea, armed with stings and able to inflate themselves until they look like a pincushion bristling with needles. Seahorses common to every ocean. Flying dragonfish with long snouts and highly distended pectoral fins shaped like wings, which enable them, if not to fly, at least to spring into the air. Spatula-shaped paddlefish whose tails are covered with many scaly rings. Snipefish with long jaws, excellent animals 25 centimeters long and gleaming with the most cheerful colors. Bluish-gray dragonettes with wrinkled heads, myriads of leaping blennies with black stripes and long pectoral fins, gliding over the surface of the water with prodigious speed. Delicious sailfish that can hoist their fins in a favorable current like so many unfurled sails. Splendid nursery fish on which nature has lavished yellow, azure, silver, and gold. Yellow mackerel with wings made of filaments. Bullheads forever splattered with mud, which make distinct hissing sounds. Sea robins whose livers are thought to be poisonous. Ladyfish that can flutter their eyelids. And finally, archerfish with long tubular snouts, real ocean-going flycatchers, armed with a rifle unforeseen by either Remington or Chassepot. It slays insects by shooting them with a simple drop of water. So, if that wasn't too dense for you, 2 very long paragraphs about fish, I will tell you there is one more, and then we are back to talking about the Nautilus. Let me take a sip of my tea. Alrighty. From the 89th fish genus in Lacipedes' system of classification, belonging to his 2nd subclass of bony fish, characterized by gill covers and a bronchial membrane, I noted some scorpion fish whose heads are adorned with stings and which have only one dorsal fin. These animals are covered with small scales, or have none at all, depending on the subgenus to which they belong. The 2nd subgenus gave us some Didactylus specimens, 3 to 4 decimeters long, streaked with yellow, their heads having a phantasmagoric appearance. As for the 1st subgenus, it furnished several specimens of that bizarre fish aptly named toadfish, whose big head is sometimes gouged with deep cavities, sometimes swollen with protuberances, bristling with stings and strewn with nodules. It sports hideously irregular horns. What the hell? Its body and tail are adorned with callosities. Its stings can inflict dangerous injuries. It's repulsive and horrible. Huh? Oh my god, wait, that was... Okay, sure. Nope, that was insane. I thought maybe it was just me, but I did a quick reading of it again, and no, it is insane. Hey, if anyone's interested, I decided to see what the classical station would do, and it's still just playing the Spoopy Spooder Forest. So I think we're not going to have any luck with that unless we just want to listen to the Spooky Spooder Forest on repeat. Oh, I'm losing my mind. By the way, the reason I picked this station, or at least this way of playing music, is because it has a YouTube save function and a bunch of other stuff. And, you know, it seemed cool. There's a genre it has listed called trance that's called trance, lasers, and more trance. It also has yacht rock. And it says you can put on your Sperry's to enjoy it. Is that its way of saying that no classical music is like copyright free except for the Spooky Spooder Forest? Who knows, not me. Back to the book. Let me check to make sure I'm in frame. Yes, I am in frame. Alrighty, let's go. From January 1st to the 23rd, the Nautilus traveled at the rate of 250 leagues in 24 hours, hence 540 miles at 22 miles per hour. If, during our trip, we were able to identify these different varieties of fish, it's because they were attracted by our electric light and tried to follow alongside, but most of them were outdistanced by our speed and soon fell behind. Temporarily, however, a few managed to keep pace in the Nautilus's waters. On the morning of the 24th, in latitude 12 degrees 5 south and longitude 94 degrees 33, we raised Keeling Island, a majorporic upheaving planted with magnificent coconut trees, which had been visited by Mr. Darwin and Captain Fitzroy. The Nautilus cruised along a short distance off the shore of this desert island. Our dragnets brought up many specimens of polyps and endoderms, plus some unusual shells from the branch mollusca. Captain Nemo's treasures were enhanced by some valuable exhibits from the Delphinilua snail species, to which I joined some pointed star coral, a sort of parasitic polypary that often attaches itself to seashells. Soon Keeling Island disappeared below the horizon, and our course was set to the northwest, along the tip of the Indian Peninsula. Civilization, Ned Land told me that day. Much better than those Papuan islands. On this Indian shore, Professor, there are roads and railways, English, French, and Hindu villages. Who wouldn't go 5 miles without bumping into a fellow countryman? Come on now, isn't it time for our sudden departure from Captain Nemo? No, Ned, I replied in a very firm tone. Let's ride it out, as you seafaring fellows say. The Nautilus is approaching populated areas. It's going back towards Europe. Let it take us there. After we arrive in home waters, we can do as we see fit. Besides, I don't imagine Captain Nemo will let us go hunting on the coasts of Malabar or Coromandel as he did in the forests of New Guinea. Well, sir, can't we manage without his permission? I didn't answer the Canadian. I wanted no arguments. Deep down, I was determined to fully exploit the good fortune that had put me on board the Nautilus. Yeah, we know. Y'all, someone could write an essay on this. And I've written an essay on 20,000 Leagues, specifically on Captain Nemo. But I'm saying that somebody could write an essay on Professor Aronnax's moral compass. Compass? Oh, I'm losing my mind. Moral compass being completely flawed. Yeah, he's a scientist, but as someone who's also likes to consider herself a scientist because I'm studying it, I wouldn't stay captive on a ship like this, I don't think, just so that I could learn more about the sea. I understand the position he's coming from. He's literally an ocean scientist. This is his bread and butter. This is his favorite thing. And by some good fortune, he's ended up on a ship. Hold on, I'm watering my bamboo. It just occurred to me it needs water. Anyway, he ended up on this magnificent marvel of ingenuity, not marvel of ingenuity, marvel of mankind, built. It shouldn't exist. It's a submarine, an amazing submarine powered by electricity, a revolutionary concept at the time. That's what makes this book science fiction that didn't exist. But I digress. I guess I understand his feelings, but honestly, I would be with Ned Land on this one. They're near the shores of civilization. They should just try to go for it. After leaving Keeling Island, our pace got generally slower. It also got more unpredictable, often taking us to great depths. Several times we used our slanting fins, which internal levers could set at an oblique angle to our waterline. Thus we went as deep as 2 or 3 kilometers down, but without ever verifying the lowest depths of this sea near India, which soundings of 13,000 meters have still been unable to reach. As for the temperature in these lower strata, the thermometer always and invariably indicated 4 degrees centigrade. I merely observed that in the upper layers, the water was always colder over shallows than in the open sea. On January 25th, the ocean being completely deserted, the Nautilus spent the day on the surface, churning the waves with its powerful propeller and making them spurt to great heights. Under these conditions, who wouldn't have mistaken it for a gigantic cetacean? I spent 3 hours of the day on the platform. I stared at the sea. Nothing on the horizon, except near 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a long steamer to the west, running on our opposite track. Its masting was visible for an instant, but it couldn't have seen the Nautilus because we were lying too low on the water. I imagined that steamboat belonged to the Peninsular and Oriental Line, which provides service from the island of Ceylon to Sydney, also calling at King George Sound in Melbourne. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, just before that brief twilight that links day and with night in tropical zones, Council and I marveled at an unusual sight. It was a delightful animal whose discovery, according to the ancients, is a sign of good luck. Aristotle, Athenaeus, Pliny, and Oppian studied its habits and lavished on its behalf all the scientific poetry of Greece and Italy. They called it Nautilus and Pompilus. But modern science has not endorsed these designations, and this mollusk is now known by the name Argonaut. Anyone consulting counsel would soon learn from the gallant lad that the branch Mollusca is divided into 5 classes. That first class features the cephalopoda, I don't know why that was so hard for me, whose members are sometimes naked, sometimes covered with a shell, which consists of 2 families, the Dibranchata and the Tetrabranchata, which are distinguished by their number of gills. The family Dibranchata includes 3 genera, the argonaut, the squid, and the cuttlefish. All amazing animals, oh my god. And that family Tetrabranchiata contains only 1 genus, the Nautilus. After this catalog, if some recalcitrant listener confuses the Argonaut, which is... Oh, they are purposefully... I feel like when this book was written, they were writing it purposefully to screw with me. If some recalcitrant listener confuses the Argonaut, which is a tabuliferous, in other words, a bearer of suction tubes, with the Nautilus, which is tentaculiferous, a bearer of tentacles, it will be simply unforgivable. How dare you confuse the Nautilus and the Argonaut because one of them has suction tubes and the other one has tentacles, you uneducated monster. Now, it was a school of Argonauts then voyaging on the surface of the ocean. We could count several hundred of them. They belonged to that species of Argonaut covered with protuberances and exclusive to the seas near India. These graceful mollusks were swimming backward by means of their locomotive tubes, sucking water into those tubes, then expelling it. Holy crap, stuff moves that way. I inhaled water. We're good. Woof. 6 of their 8 tentacles were long, thin, and floated on the water, while the other 2 were rounded into palms and spread to the wind like light sails. I could see their perfectly undulating spiral-shaped shells, which Cuvier aptly compared to an elegant cockle-boat. It's an actual boat, indeed. It transports the animal that secretes it without the animal sticking to it. The Argonaut is free to leave its shell, I told Council, but it never does. Not unlike Captain Nemo, Council replied sagely, which is why you should have christened his ship the Argonaut. For about an hour, the Nautilus cruised in the midst of this school of mollusks. Then, Lord knows why, they were gripped with a sudden fear. As if at a signal, every sail was abruptly lowered, arms folded, bodies contracted, shells turned over by changing their center of gravity, and the whole flotilla disappeared under the waves. It was instantaneous, and no squadron of ships had ever maneuvered with greater togetherness. Just then night fell suddenly, and the waves barely surged in the breeze, spreading placidly around the Nautilus's side plates. The next day, January 26th, we cut the equator on the 82nd meridian, and we re-entered the northern hemisphere. I'm going to drink this tea before it gets cold, don't mind me. What song are we vibing to right now? Never Coming Back by Big Giant Circles. Alright. During that day, a fearsome school of sharks provided us with an escort. Dreadful animals that teem in these seas and make them extremely dangerous. There were Port Jackson sharks, with a brown back, a whitish belly, and 11 rows of teeth. Big eye sharks with necks marked by a back spot encircled in white and resembling an eye, and Isabella sharks whose rounded snouts were strewn with dark speckles. Often these powerful animals rushed at the lounge window with a violence less than comforting. By this point, Ned Land had lost all self-control. He wanted to rise to the surface of the waves and harpoon the monsters, especially certain smooth hound sharks whose mouths were paved with teeth arranged like a mosaic, and some big 5-meter tiger sharks that insisted on personally provoking him. But the Nautilus soon picked up speed and easily left astern, the fastest of these man-eaters. On January 27th, at the entrance to the huge Bay of Bengal, we repeatedly encountered a gruesome sight: human corpses floating on the surface of the waves. Carried by the Ganges into the high seas, these were deceased Indian villagers who hadn't been fully devoured by vultures, the only morticians in these parts. But there was no shortage of sharks to assist them with their undertaking chores. Near 7 o'clock in the evening, the Nautilus lay half submerged, navigating in the midst of milky white waves. As far as the eye could see, the ocean seemed lactified. Was it an effect of the moon's rays? No, because the new moon was barely 2 days old and was still lost below the horizon in the sun's rays. The entire sky, although lit up by stellar radiation, seemed pitch black in comparison with the whiteness of these waters. Council couldn't believe his eyes, and he questioned me about the causes of this odd phenomenon. Luckily, I was in a position to answer him. That's called a milk sea, I told him. A vast expanse of white waves, often seen along the coasts of Amboina and in these waterways. But, Council asked, could you tell me the cause of this effect? Because I presume this water hasn't really changed into milk. No, my boy. And this whiteness that amazes you is merely due to the presence of myriads of tiny creatures called infusoria, a sort of diminutive glowworm that's colorless and gelatinous in appearance, as thick as a strand of hair, and no longer than 1/5 of a millimeter. Some of these tiny creatures stick together over an area of several leagues. Several leagues! Council exclaimed. Yes, my boy, and don't even try to compute the number of these infusoria. You won't pull it off, because if I'm not mistaken, certain navigators have cruised through milk seas for more than 40 miles. I'm not sure that Council heeded my recommendation because he seemed to be deep in thought, no doubt trying to calculate how many 1/5 of a millimeter are found in 40 square miles. As for me, I continued to observe this phenomenon. For several hours, the Nautilus's spurs sliced through these whitish waves, and I watched it glide noiselessly over the soapy water, as if it were cruising through those foaming eddies that a bay's currents and countercurrents sometimes leave between each other. Near midnight, the sea suddenly resumed its usual hue, but behind us all the way to the horizon, the skies kept mirroring the whiteness of those waves, and for a good while seemed imbued with the hazy glow of an aurora borealis. I like this song a lot, Motionless Thoughts, by Approaching Nirvana. Ah! Hold up. Did I lose a... This isn't me complaining, it sounds like it's sad, but it isn't. Did I lose a follower during the stream? If I understand if people don't like the reading streams, that seems a bit... Yeah, I did. That seems a bit extra, but okay, sure. Also, we're done with chapter 1. Clink. I liked that chapter, despite it being very slow. I liked the part about the aurora borealis. I am wondering if Jules Verne wanted there to be some deeper meaning to them finding a bunch of bodies in the water. Maybe it had to do with there being some tropical storm of some kind, but I'm sure that if there was, the Nautilus would have felt the effects of it, because they come up to the surface fairly frequently. I'm just gonna finish my tea, by the way, and then we'll continue reading. Let me switch to my just chatting screen while I do it. Just so you know, we ain't reading at the current moment. Oh my god, wait, I'm like really vibing with this music. I'm going to like this song. This is like a Pandora station. I cannot lose it. Oh my god, I caught it 10 seconds before the end. I'm magical. And now we get dead silence while the songs change. Alright. I'm wondering who this music artist is. Abstraction? I think it's the same person that wrote Spoopy Spiders, if I'm not mistaken. I could always check, but I don't feel like it. Yeah, it is Abstraction. But yeah, they do a lot of like techie, science fiction-y sounding songs, and that's pretty cool. Alright, I'm done. And I still have some water left after deciding to give most of my water to my bamboo plant, so... Oh man. Also, just, I'll probably talk about this later on or next time when I do a stream because, I don't know, it's just something that comes up. I like talking about the future, and I've always been very hesitant to make a Discord channel. Still am. Don't think I'm making a Discord. But I do think that I should set a follower goal of some kind for when I would make a Discord. I think for notifying people, they seem invaluable. But in terms of the community, I just have a lot of reservations about it because I don't want it to become toxic. I don't want it to become a place where people just rant. Not saying anything bad about other people who have Discords, like not at all. It's more of just a personal problem where I don't check Discord too terribly frequently anyway. It wouldn't be at this current moment the most active / entertaining place to find yourself on a potential Cam Gala Discord, so. But I don't want to be negative. I'm just saying. For its telling people when you go live / announcements feature, it seems invaluable. Yes, Megan? What should your gamer tag be? I mean, mine is my name, and then to think about ones in the future, I was just thinking about going off of nicknames I've had in the past, but I have heard a fun piece of advice once that was mispronounce a bunch of common items / mash words together, and then you can get some fun ones. Giving you an idea of some of the people who followed me, we got Churro Theory, we got Ozcaddy, Freelancer, Amnesiac, that's kind of like Amnesiac, Megan, Pagan, Megan. Oh god, that made me... I hate you. You could also do our mom and do Mama Gallagher 92, which does insinuate that there is 92 other Mama Gallaghers out there. Just saying. I also have been followed by a Father's Milk. So there is a Father's Milk 1 out there, which again insinuates that there is a different Father's Milk. Horrible. I'm sorry. Horrible. It's your graduation year, dummy. Wow, okay. Good way to figure out that you're watching. Also, I guess that makes sense, but I don't know. That's still a weird number to pick, Ma. You're the OV? Am I supposed to know what OV means? Because I don't. Like, OG? Did you mean to say OG? Yeah, you got it. Okay, you I got there. Man, I don't know. I don't know either. How come the classical channel for this station only plays, Spoopy Spooter Forest? And that's an actual complaint. I have, something that plays music that's Twitch safe, that the last time I did it, it's soundtracked by Twitch, and the last time I played classical music through it, it was really good. So I think what I'm gonna do is for everything that isn't these reading live streams, I can use Pretzel Rocks in the future. And then for these reading streams, I can just use the classical music on Soundtrack by Twitch. You're digging it? Good. That's good. Yeah, the reason I'm panicking about playing chill piano versus technically classical is because one of the tags that I have for my stream is classical, and I would hate to go against what Twitch tags are supposed to be. But they've actually seemed to, like, pretty thematically fit well with the story, which is interesting. Alrighty, let's go into chapter 2, shall we? You can still talk if you want. Not just talking to my family, but it might just be my family. At any point, if people just want to talk, I'm down to chat. I'm reading, but it's not an audiobook. Read to me. Alright, Ma. This one's for you. Chapter 2. A New Proposition from Captain Nemo. On January 28th, in latitude 9 degrees 4 north, when the Nautilus returned at noon to the surface of the sea, it lay in sight of land some 8 miles to the west. Right off, I observed a cluster of mountains about 2,000 feet high, whose shapes were very whimsically sculpted. After our position fix, I recentered the lounge, and when our bearings were reported on the chart, I saw that we were off the island of Ceylon, that pearl dangling from the lower lobe of the Indian Peninsula. I went looking in the library for a book about this island, one of the most fertile in the world. Sure enough, I found a volume entitled Ceylon and the Sinhalese by H.C. Sir Esquire. Re-entering the lounge, I first noted the bearings of Ceylon, on which antiquity lavished so many different names. It was located between latitude 5 degrees 55 and 9 degrees 59 north, and between longitude 79 degrees 42 and 82 degrees 4 east of the Mediterranean of Greenwich. Its length is 275 miles, its maximum width 150 miles. Its circumference, 900 miles. Its surface area, 24,448 square miles. In other words, a little smaller than that of Ireland. Hold up. I just got a notification that 4 Gothers followed me at 8:32, and I just saw that, so on the off chance you're still here, thank you. Or 4 Gathers, I could say. Just then, Captain Nemo and his chief officer appeared. Actually, hold on, before I start reading again. Because I didn't get that notification, we're just gonna test my widgets. You're gonna get a notification that I have followed myself. There we go. Sounds like it's working. I digress. Here you go. Just then, Captain Nemo and his chief officer appeared. The captain glanced at the chart, then turning to me. "The island of Ceylon," he said. "It's famous for its pearl fisheries. Would you be interested, Professor Aronnax, in visiting one of those fisheries?" "Certainly, Captain." "Fine, it's easily done. Only when we see the fisheries, we'll see no fishermen. The annual harvest hasn't yet begun. No matter. I'll give orders to make for the Gulf of Mannar, and we'll arrive there late tonight." The captain said a few words to his chief officer, who went out immediately. Soon the Nautilus re-entered its liquid element, and the pressure gauge indicated that it was staying at a depth of 30 feet. With the chart under my eyes, I looked for the Gulf of Mannar. I found it by the 9th parallel off of the northwest shores of Ceylon. It was formed by the long curve of Little Manor Island. To reach it, we had to go all the way up Ceylon's west coast. "Professor," Captain Nemo then told me, "there are pearl fisheries in the Bay of Bengal, the seas of the East Indies, the seas of China and Japan, plus those seas south of the United States, the Gulf of Panama and the Gulf of California. But it's off of Ceylon that such fishing reaps its richest rewards. No doubt we'll be arriving a little early. Fishermen gather in the Gulf of Mannar only during the month of March, and for 30 days some 300 boats concentrate on the lucrative harvest of these treasures from the sea. Each boat is manned by 10 oarsmen and 10 fishermen. The latter divide into 2 groups, dive in rotation, and descend to a depth of 12 meters with the help of a heavy-duty stone clutched between their feet and attached by a rope to their boat." "You mean," I said, "that such primitive methods are still all that they use?" "All," Captain Nemo answered me, "although these fisheries belong to the most industrialized people in the world, the English, to whom the Treaty of Amiens granted them in 1802. Yet it strikes me that diving suits like yours could perform human service in such work." "Yes, since those poor fishermen can't stay long underwater. On his voyage to Ceylon, the Englishman Percival made much of a On his voyage to Ceylon, the Englishman Percival made much of a Kafir who stayed under 5 minutes without coming up to the surface, but I find that hard to believe. I know that some divers can last up to 57 seconds, and highly skillful ones to 87, but such men are rare, and when the poor fellows climb back on board, the water coming out of their noses and ears is tinted with blood. I believe that the average time underwater that these fishermen can tolerate is 30 seconds, during which they hastily stuff their little nets full with all the pearl oysters they can tear loose. But these fishermen generally don't live to advanced age. Their vision weakens, ulcers break out on their eyes, sores form on their bodies, and some are even stricken with apoplexy on the ocean floor." "Yes," I said, "it's a sad occupation, and one that exists only to gratify the whims of fashion. But tell me, Captain, how many oysters can a boat fish up in a workday?" "About 40,000 to 50,000. It's even said that in 1814, when the English government went fishing on its own behalf, its divers worked just 20 days and brought up 76 million oysters." "At least," I asked, "the fishermen are well paid, aren't they?" "Hardly, Professor. In Panama, they make just $1 per week. In most places, they can earn only a penny for each oyster that has a pearl, and they bring up so many that have none." "Only 1 penny to those poor people who make their employers rich. That's atrocious." "On that note, Professor," Captain Nemo told me, You and your companions will visit the Manar oyster bank, and if by chance some eager fisherman arrives early, well, we can watch him at work. That suits me, Captain. By the way, Professor Aronnax, you aren't afraid of sharks, are you? Sharks? I exclaimed. This struck me as a pretty needless question, to say the least. Well, Captain Nemo went on, I'll admit, Captain, I'm not yet on very familiar terms with that genus of fish. We're used to them, the rest of us, Captain Nemo answered. And in time you will be too. Anyhow, we'll be armed, and on our way we might hunt a man-eater or two. It's a fascinating sport. So, Professor, I'll see you tomorrow, bright and early. This said in a carefree tone, Captain Nemo left the lounge. If you're invited to hunt bears in the Swiss mountains, you might say, "Oh good, I get to go bear hunting tomorrow." If you're invited to hunt lions on the Atlas Plains or tigers in the jungles of India, you might say, "Ha, now's my chance to hunt lions and tigers." But if you're invited to hunt sharks in their native element, you might want to think it over before accepting. As for me, I passed a hand over my brow where beads of cold sweat were busy forming. Let's think this over, I said to myself, and let's take our time. Hunting otters in underwater forests, as we did in the forests of Crespo Island, is an acceptable activity. But to roam the bottom of the sea when you're almost certain to meet man-eaters in the neighborhood, that's another story. I know that in certain countries, particularly the Andaman Islands, you don't hesitate to attack sharks, dagger in one hand and noose in the other. But I also know that many who face those fearsome animals don't come back alive. Besides, I'm not from the Andaman Islands, and even if I were, in this instant, I don't think a little hesitation on my part would be out of place. And there I was, fantasizing about sharks, envisioning huge jaws armed with multiple rows of teeth and capable of cutting a man in half. I could already feel a definite pain around my pelvic girdle. And how I resented the offhand manner in which the captain has extended his deplorable invitation. You would have thought it was the issue of going into the woods on some harmless fox hunt. Thank heavens, I said to myself. Council will never want to come along, and that will be my excuse for not going with the captain. As for Ned Land, I'll admit I felt less confident of his wisdom. Danger, however great, held a perennial attraction for his aggressive nature. I went back to reading Sir's book, but I leafed through it mechanically. Between the lines, I kept seeing fearsome, wide-open jaws. Just then, Council and the Canadian entered with a calm, even gleeful air. Little did they know what was waiting for them. "Ye gods, sir," Ned Land told me, "your Captain Nemo, the devil take him, has just made us a very pleasant proposition." "Oh," I said, you know about—" "With all due respect," Council replied, "the Nautilus's commander has invited us, together with you, for a visit tomorrow to Ceylon's magnificent pearl fisheries. He did so in the most cordial terms and conducted himself like a true gentleman." "He didn't tell you anything else?" "Nothing, sir," the Canadian replied. "He said you'd already discussed this little stroll." "Indeed," I said. "But he didn't give you any details on—" "Not a one, Mr. Naturalist. You will be going with us, right?" "Me? Why, yes, certainly, of course. I can see that you like the idea, Mr. Land. Yes, it will be a really unusual experience." "And possibly dangerous," I added in an insinuating tone. "Dangerous," Ned Land replied. "A simple trip to an oyster bank?" Assuredly, Captain Nemo hadn't seen fit to plant the idea of sharks in the minds of my companions. For my part, I stared at them with anxious eyes, as if they were already missing a limb or two. Should I alert them? Yes, surely, but I hardly knew how to go about it. "Would you," Council said to me, "give us some background on pearl fishing?" "On the fishing itself?" I asked. "Or on the occupational hazards that—" "On the fishing," the Canadian replied. "Before we tackle the terrain, it helps to be familiar with it." "All right, sit down, my friends, and I'll teach you everything I have myself just been taught by the Englishman H.C. Sir." Ned and Council took seats on a couch, and right off the Canadian said to me, "Sir, just what is a pearl exactly?" "My gallant Ned," I replied, For poets, a pearl is a tear from the sea. For Orientals, it's a drop of solidified dew. That's okay. This is an old book. For the ladies, it's a jewel they can wear on their fingers, necks, and ears that's oblong in shape, glassy in luster, and formed from the mother of pearl. For chemists, it's a mixture of calcium phosphate and calcium carbonate with a little gelatin protein. And finally, for naturalists, it's a simple festering secretion from the organ that produces mother of pearl in certain bivalves. Branch mollusca, Council said. Classifala, order Testacea. Correct, my scholarly counsel. Now then, these Testacea, capable of producing pearls that include rainbow abalone, turbo snails, giant clams, and other saltwater scallops. Briefly, all those that secrete mother of pearl, in other words, that blue, azure, violet, or white substance lining the insides of their valves. Are mussels included too? The Canadian asked. Yes, the mussels of certain streams in Scotland, Wales, Ireland, Saxony, Bohemia, and France. Good, the Canadian replied. From now on, we'll pay closer attention to them. But, I went on, for secreting pearls, the ideal mollusk is the pearl oyster, that valuable shellfish. Pearls result simply from the mother of pearl solidifying into a globular shape. Either they stick to the oyster's shell, or they become embedded in the creature's folds. On the valves, a pearl sticks fast. On the flesh, it lies loose. But its nucleus is always some small hard object, say a sterile egg or a grain of sand, around which the mother of pearl is deposited in thin, concentric layers over several years in succession. Can one find several pearls in the same oyster? Council asked. Yes, my boy. There are some shellfish that turn into real jewel coffers. They even mention one oyster, about which I remain dubious, that supposedly contained at least 150 sharks. 150 sharks! Ned Land yelped. Did I say sharks? I exclaimed hastily. I meant 150 pearls. Sharks wouldn't make sense. Indeed, Council said. But will you tell us now about how one goes extracting these pearls? I'm sorry, this is the best chapter I've ever read in this book. One proceeds in several ways, and often when pearls stick to the valves, fishermen even pull them loose with pliers. But usually the shellfish are spread out on mats made from the esparto grass that covers the beaches. Thus they die in the open air, and by the end of 10 days they've rotted sufficiently. Next, they're immersed in huge tanks of salt water, then they're opened up and washed. At this point, the sorters begin their twofold task. First, they remove the layers of mother of pearl, which are known in the industry by the names legitimate silver, bastard white, or bastard black. And these are shipped out in cases weighing 125 to 150 kilograms. Then they remove the oyster's meaty tissue, boil it, and finally strain it, in order to extract even the smallest pearls. Do the prices of these pearls differ depending on their size? Council asked. Not only on their size, I replied, but also according to their shape, their water, in other words, their color, and their orient, in other words, the dappled shimmering glow that makes them so delightful to the eye. The finest pearls are called virgin pearls, or paragons. They form in isolation within the mollusk's tissue. They're white, often opaque, but sometimes of opalescent transparency, and usually spherical or pear-shaped. The spherical ones, spear-shaped pearls, I'm losing it. The spherical ones are made into bracelets, the pear-shaped ones into earrings, and since they're the most valuable, they are priced individually. The other pearls that stick to the oyster's shell are more erratically shaped and are priced by weight. Finally, classed in the lowest order, the smallest pearls are known by the name seed pearls. They're priced by the measuring cup and are used mainly in the creation of embroidery for church vestments. But it must be a long, hard job sorting out these pearls by size, the Canadian said. No, my friend, that task is performed with 11 strainers or sieves that are pierced with different numbers of holes. Those pearls staying in the strainers with 20 to 80 holes are the first order. Those not slipping through the sieves pierced with 100 to 800 holes are in the second order. And finally, those pearls which uses strainers pierced with 900 to 1,000 holes make up the seed pearls. How ingenious, Council said, to reduce dividing and classifying pearls to a mechanical operation. And could Master tell us how the profits brought in by harvesting these banks of pearl oysters? According to Sir's book, I replied, these Ceylon fisheries are farmed annually for a total profit. I'm sorry, I started laughing before I even read it. They are farmed for a total profit of 3 million man-eaters. Francs, Council rebuked. Yes, francs, 3 million francs, I went on. But I don't think these fisheries bring in the returns they once did. Similarly, the Central American fisheries used to make an annual profit of 4 million francs during the reign of King Charles V, but now they bring in only 2/3 of that amount. All in all, it's estimated that 9 million francs is the current yearly return for the whole pearl harvesting industry. But, Council asked, haven't certain famous pearls been quoted at extremely high prices? Yes, my boy, they say Julius Caesar gave Servilia a pearl worth 120,000 francs in our currency. I've even heard stories, the Canadian said, about some lady in ancient times who drank pearls and vinegar. Cleopatra, Council shot back. It must have tasted pretty bad, Ned Land added. Abominable, my friend Ned, Council replied, but when a little glass of vinegar is worth 1.5 million francs, its taste is a small price to pay. I'm sorry I didn't marry the gal, the Canadian said, throwing up his hands with an air of discouragement. Ned Land married to Cleopatra, Council exclaimed. But I was all set to tie the knot, Council, the Canadian replied in all seriousness, and it wasn't my fault the whole business fell through. I even bought a pearl necklace for my fiancée, Kate Tender, but she married somebody else instead. Well, that necklace cost me only $150, but you can absolutely trust me on this, Professor. Its pearls were so big they wouldn't have gone through that strainer with 20 holes. My gallant Ned, I replied, laughing, those were artificial pearls, ordinary glass beads whose insides were coated with the essence of Orient. Wow, the Canadian replied. That essence must sell for quite a large sum. As little as 0. It comes from the scales of a European carp. It's nothing more than a silver substance that collects in the water and is preserved in ammonia. It's worthless. Maybe that's why Kate Tender married somebody else, replied Mr. Land philosophically. But, I said, getting back to pearls of great value, I don't think any sovereign has ever possessed one superior to the pearl owned by Captain Nemo. This one, Council said, pointing to a magnificent jewel in its glass case. Exactly, and I'm certainly not far off when I estimate its value at 2 million, francs, Council said quickly. Yes, I said 2 million francs, and no doubt all it cost our captain was the effort to pick it up. Dude, this is the funniest chapter that has ever happened in this book, and the music we're listening to is called Dad Malpractice. I can't right now. Ha, Ned Land exclaimed. During our stroll tomorrow, who says we won't run into one just like it? Bah, Council put in. And why not? What? Sorry, someone's car alarm is going off outside. I'm not sure if you can hear it. It's like the most atrocious car alarm sound. Anyway. What good would a pearl worth millions do us here on the Nautilus? Here, no, Ned Land said, but elsewhere. Oh, elsewhere, Council put in, shaking his head. In fact, I said, Mr. Land is right. If we ever brought it back to Europe or America, a pearl worth millions, it would make the story of our adventures more authentic and much more rewarding. That's how I see it, the Canadian said. But, said Council, who perpetually returned to the didactic side of things, is this pearl fishing ever dangerous? No, I replied quickly, especially if one takes certain precautions. What risks would you run into in a job like that? Ned Land said, swallowing a few gulps of water. Whatever you say, then, Ned. Trying to imitate Captain Nemo's carefree tone, I asked, By the way, gallant Ned, are you afraid of sharks? Me, the Canadian replied. I'm a professional harpooner. It's my job to make a mockery of them. It isn't an issue, I said, of fishing for them with a swivel hook, hoisting them onto the deck of a ship, chopping off the tail with the sweep of an axe, opening the belly, ripping out its heart, and tossing it into the sea. So it's an issue of, yes, precisely. In the water? In the water. Ye gods, just give me a good harpoon. You see, sir, these sharks are badly designed. They have to roll their bellies over to snap you up, and in the meantime... Ned Land had a way of pronouncing the word snap that sent chills down the spine. Well, how about you, Council? What are your feelings about these man-eaters? Me? Council said. I'm afraid I must be frank with you. Good for you, I thought. If you face these sharks, Council said, I think your loyal servant should face them with you. And there we go. Done with Chapter 2 of Part 2 of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Alright. Good shit. Oh, yawn. I'm good. I'm tired. Always. It's 9:30 p.m. and I'm exhausted. But yeah, honestly, the only thing that stops me from going further in streams like this is that my voice gets so tired and so raw, more than doing any other type of stream. I never had issues with my voice during a stream where I'm playing video games. But during a stream that is just chatting, I die. I perish. That's just what happens. But thank you so much to people who are able to stop by. And thank you to people who are watching this VOD later, whether on my channel, on YouTube, or just on Twitch, on my Twitch profile. I see you. I watch VODs. It's my favorite thing. So, yeah. I guess this will be the end for me. Oh, my face cam was off. The end for me. Alrighty. Thank you. We will not be raiding someone tonight. We will just be going to sleep. I will be going to sleep. I hope you have a good night. And until I see you next time. Adios. Bye.